Hello and welcome to the Full Court Press for our global hydrogen interview, where we slice through the buzz of a market that many are saying could be the next oil, or one of them at least, for the 21st century. My name is 𝗖𝗵cie𝗶𝗰𝗲. I'm the director of the Energy Transition Dialogues at Gulf Intelligence, and I'm very glad that 𝗣𝗿𝗁𝘁 has joined me. He is the Secretary General of Hydrogen Europe. 𝗣𝗿, thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, Michelle.
Thank you for joining us, flat tire and all, but we got here, so it's fantastic. We can dive in quickly. A motion on the EU's hydrogen strategy recently won support from the European Parliament, 19th of May, actually, so very recent. Backing the use of low-carbon hydrogen made from, and there are quote marks on that statement, made from fossil gas as a bridge towards 100% renewable production. What are your views on that? Do you agree that giving a transitional role to low-carbon hydrogen as opposed to green hydrogen primarily would jeopardize the achievement of Europe's climate objectives, or do you think that it's a moving situation and needs to be these stopgap, needs to be these stages in place? What's your take?
Well, first of all, this hydrogen strategy was issued last year already, 8th of July, and it was the European Parliament that adopted their own opinion on that. The member states of the European Union had already, back in December, wholeheartedly supported the strategy, so that's very good. In the strategy, we have several targets that need to be reached. One of these targets is in 24 to have a 6 gigawatt electrolyzer capacity. That's renewably produced hydrogen, but at the same time, we want to scale up this low carbon or zero carbon hydrogen, and there are several technologies. The next target would then be 40 gigawatt in 2030. It's quite ambitious, and not only 1 times 40 but 2 times 40 in Europe and the other 40 in MENA region, so the neighboring regions of Europe, Ukraine, and well, the Gulf, but also Northern Africa. The thing about it is blue and green, although it's in our logo, as you see, is basically not the real category. The real category is a threshold of that gives you an indication of how clean hydrogen is. The Commission has also come up with such a threshold. It's about 75% of decarbonization. So if you have natural gas, 75%, it's quite ambitious. It's much more than normal blue, to be honest and to be clear, but it's achievable. We see that the renewably produced hydrogen, especially also in the Gulf region, gains traction. And not only there. So the prices for that sort of hydrogen might go down rapidly. And so it's a question also of competition with low carbon, whether it makes sense in the end or not.
Indeed, and you just mentioned there about the Middle East and the Gulf specifically, and how there is a flow over, and we're seeing recent MOUs between Germany and Saudi Arabia, for example, on establishing more of a partnership or more of a knowledge sharing deal when it comes to the growth of the green hydrogen market. How do you see that progressing with Europe's needs and the Middle East's ambitions to be an exporter?
Well, the Germans last Friday came up, so this month came up with their so-called 𝗖𝗵cie strategy. That's the important project of common European interest. And wow, they put some 8.2 billion euro into this project, 62 hydrogen projects only in Germany. We see similar developments in other European countries. And what they all need for their hydrogen projects is hydrogen. And hydrogen is cheaply produced in regions where you have lots of sun or lots of wind. And guess what? The Gulf region is one of the preferred partners, as there is a lot of sun and there is the infrastructure that you need in order to not only produce, but also to transport cheaply the hydrogen towards Europe. Because Europe will develop to a major producer, but also would stay a major customer on hydrogen. And you mentioned
Germany alone could import up to 90% of its needs, 70 to 90%.
Germany would be one of the net importers, of the main net importers with the heavy industry, because that's the low-hanging fruit. So the first clients will be the chemical industry, biggest chemical plant is in Germany, BASF. It's the refinery industry, it's the fertilizer industry, and the steel industry. These are the low-hanging fruits. These guys can buy green, renewable, or low-carbon hydrogen immediately. They don't need to adapt. And that is why we need to have the transportation towards Europe. And there comes ammonia into the play, because it's not only about hydrogen, it's also about the derivatives of hydrogen in order to have green ammonia, so renewably produced ammonia, which exists out of, or which is formed out of hydrogen, renewably produced, and nitrogen from the air. That makes it transportable. It's easier than to transport this hydrogen in form of ammonia, to crack it back again in Europe, or to use it as ammonia. And we see already big investments in the Gulf regions taking place into this process of creating ammonia out of renewable hydrogen. We are looking forward to it. We now need to adapt the hubs, the ports, to receive and to take this hydrogen on board in Europe. And this is all done subsequently and in parallel.
Indeed, we saw only last September Saudi Arabia and Japan tying up for the world's first such shipment, and the UAE has made recent announcements in the last couple of weeks alone about doing such projects on home soil, and how that can drive its position not just as a hub, but as an exporter as well, not just as a hub for knowledge and projects, but as an exporter as well. Just pivoting back to Europe as well, because allowing low carbon hydrogen to contribute at its full potential along with renewable hydrogen could save Europe up to 2 trillion euros up to 2050 in a post-pandemic world, post-worst economic state that we've been in since the 1930s, according to the IMF. Such numbers are very appealing, especially to investors who see hydrogen, some of them, as more of a high-risk market to get involved in. From your perspective, what are some of the gaps that are need to be plugged in order to fulfill this full potential of green hydrogen, this full 2 trillion euros?
Yes, we have some regulatory problems still. I give you an example. If you produce hydrogen today from grid power, you need to prove that this is from an additional renewable source. So you cannot just take the grid power and put it on an electrolyzer and produce hydrogen. It's not allowed. But to be honest, this is detected as a main bottleneck for investments, and I'm pretty sure that the policymakers will remove that. That's good. There's a mood of supporting this game changer. Hydrogen is regarded as the game changer in the energy transition, and that's very, very good. Another bottleneck, of course, is the infrastructure. I mean, yes, we have a very dense system of pipelines for natural gas all over Europe, but they need to be retrofitted or repurposed. The costs for repurposing of pipelines are 25% of new build, so it's not that much, but it needs to be done. And what we are doing at the moment is we are starting from the hubs. We were talking about the ports and the industrial clusters that will be the first clients, chemical, fertilizer, refinery, and steel, and we will connect them. And by connecting the hubs with each other, we will see the backbone. That are the first steps to a backbone all over Europe. That's what we would like to.
And you're looking for about 40,000 kilometers worth of such infrastructure being hydrogen ready, essentially. That's a huge number, and of course we know that it's increased. It was a lower ambition last year, and it's only been ramped up in the last couple of months. What are your thoughts on that 40,000 kilometers? It's very much a stake in the ground of ambition.
Well, if you talk to old guys, old chaps being active in the oil and gas business, they say they see the same eyes and happiness in the eyes of their younger colleagues dealing with hydrogen, the same compared with dealing with natural gas in the late 70s, early 80s. So these are historical marks. These are disruptive changes. Or you do it or you don't. At the moment, everybody understands the power grids are not capable of carrying the loads of renewable energy that need to be built up and ramped up. So the blue hydrogen, the low carbon hydrogen, will profit very much from this renewable infrastructure being built up, but not having enough grid power to be transported. That is why it's anyhow urgently needed to use the pipelines that then can transport renewable energy in forms of molecules, in this case of hydrogen, and not in forms of electrons, because the licensing procedures, and let alone the rare earths and the critical material that you need, copper, is not there. We don't have it. So in order to reach these targets, also these climate targets, repurposing the existing infrastructure is a challenge, but it's absolutely doable, and it's much more affordable than building up a power grid. Just one.
Indeed, for a new market from the ground up, a 25% price tag. I mean, of course, that depends on which side of the fence you're sitting on, whether you're the one paying for it or the one benefiting from it. But argue, or both perhaps, but arguably that is a relatively good deal. If perhaps we go back more than a century and somebody said, oh, the oil market is starting up, but don't worry, we only have to pay 25% of the total cost for the infrastructure. That would be a bonanza, wouldn't it? It would be a wonderful financial proposition. Yeah, but within that, with hydrogen blending, what are your expectations on the rise in hydrogen blending, the injection of hydrogen into existing gas infrastructure as a share of the overall volume? What can we expect? Because that's still quite early days, isn't it?
Yeah, hydrogen blending up to 20% is no technical issue. So you can do it. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't harm any technical application. Over 20%, it's a problem. What do you win? You win quick win, so you can use it immediately up to 20%, and you have higher calorific value and less CO2 emissions. So you have a win, but it is nothing else than a transition technology. So blending will not be long-lasting. It will just be used for today. Give you a best example, it's stationary fuel cells. That's fuel cells that you use to heat your home and to get some electricity back home. You can use fuel cells, stationary fuel cells, fully 100% with natural gas, and then you can gradually go to 100% hydrogen. So the fuel cell can deal with everything, but the turbines cannot, and the boilers cannot. That is why we have this 20%. So blending, don't bet on it as a long-lasting thing. It's a transition. However, when it comes to the gas grids, I mean, to have something which was regarded as a stranded asset with 25% of investment costs to have it an asset for another 100, 150, 200 years. Wow, that's a very good deal, and that's why
that is a very good deal. I think it was the 𝗣𝗵cie𝗶𝗰𝗲 that set up to nearly $1 trillion worth of risk of stranded assets, as according to the current progress and the current situation with the climate targets we've got. And I've heard estimates well over that. I've heard estimates up to $2.5 trillion as well. So if any of that can be countered by this 25% just in the hydrogen market, let alone digitalization and other tools as well, then it certainly starts to change the picture. 𝗣𝗿, thank you very much for joining us. That's been very insightful. We've covered a good chunk of information, and I hope that you join us again soon, and we can delve in a little deeper again.
Of course, indeed. Thanks very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you.